Welcome to episode 44 of the Perrysburg podcast. I'm your host and Perrysburg resident, Kim Newlove. Today, we're talking about Riverside Park. If you are new to this podcast, welcome. The Perrysburg podcast is an informational podcast for prospective, new, and current Perrysburg, Ohio residents. We talk about what's in Perrysburg and why people like to live here. You can find the show notes for this episode on perrysburgpodcast.com. This episode has 3 parts. Part 1 is just general information about Riverside Park, location, parking, how long it takes to see everything, that sort of deal. Part 2 is features of the park, and then Part 3 has additional information. I will be talking about the Blue Star Memorial Byway Marker and Garden, the Gold Star Families Memorial Monument, and the story of the Riverside Park Cannons. That does it for the overview. Let's dive into Part 1, General Information. Riverside Park is located at 245 West Front Street in Perrysburg, Ohio. Where can you park? I recommend 2 lots. One is located at 105 West Front Street here in Perrysburg. That is the parking lot for Hood Park as well. The other parking lot is a small parking lot that's next to the Louisiana Avenue boat dock. Take Louisiana Avenue all the way to where it ends by the river. You'll go behind the statue of Commodore Perry, down the hill, and then you'll see the parking lot there. That is my favorite place to park when I go to Riverside Park. By the way, if both of those parking lots are full, you can also park on a side street or in one of the public parking lots along West 2nd Street that is close to Walnut Street. So head for the intersection of West 2nd and Walnut. You'll find a couple of parking lots there. Now that you've parked, how long does it take to see everything at Riverside Park? I would recommend 30 to 45 minutes. Give yourself about 45 minutes if you want to be on the safe side. Now, this ends part 1, which is general information. Now we're going to move on to part 2, which is features of Riverside Park. Riverside Park has an upper part that's at the street level, and then there's a lower part along the river. I call it Upper Riverside Park and Lower Riverside Park. I don't know if upper and lower are things that other locals call it, but that is what I call it. Now, since I prefer to park by the boat dock along the river, which I also call Lower Riverside Park, okay, I'll go through the features of the park as you will enter the park from the lower side first. Now, as you walk from the parking lot, you will pass the Perrysburg Boat Club building. That will be on your right. The Perrysburg Boat Club will be on your right. It is not part of Riverside Park, that boat club there, but you will see it, so I mention it. The entrance to Riverside Park is along what I know as Water Street. It is not marked as Water Street, I just know it as Water Street. Water Street runs along the river until it terminates into Riverside Park. The boat club and the river will be on your right, and Hood Park will be on your left. You have to basically walk through Hood Park to get to Riverside Park. Riverside Park is one of the few parks in Perrysburg that does not have a city park sign. There's nothing formal to welcome you to the park, so you'll just have to trust me that you'll know you're there when you see a large concrete retaining wall on your left-hand side and the river and some lounge chairs with some shade structures on your right. One of the features of this park is a paved walking path. So, as soon as you pass the Perrysburg Boat Club, you'll come to this walking path. I believe it's asphalt paved, and it goes along the river for, I would say, less than a quarter of a mile, and then it stops at this grassy path that connects Riverside Park to Orleans Park. Please note that on a hot, windy day, you might smell Perrysburg's sewage treatment plant. I am sorry for the bad news, but it is the truth. The sewage treatment plant is pretty close to Riverside Park. Now let's talk about the walking path just a little bit more. Along the walking path, you'll find lounge chairs and shade structures. I already mentioned those, but you'll also find 2 bench style swings. These are not playground swings. There is no playground here at Riverside Park. There are no bathrooms either. But these swings and the lounge chairs are nice places to just sit and look at the river. You can actually see the Perrysburg Boat Club's docks right from that location. Now, every once in a while, you may also see a private seaplane land right there on the water in front of Riverside Park, right on the river. It is so cool. If you get to see it, you are lucky because in 17 years, I have only seen it land and take off once. That's a pretty cool hobby, flying a seaplane. But let's go back to features here. Other features of Lower Riverside Park include landscaping. There's trees, there's bushes, there's flowers, there's a trash can, and there is a brick paved area. Riverside Park became a very popular place for walkers, runners, bikers, and group exercise groups when it got updated, I would say right around the year 2017. Former Mayor Michael Olmsted did that park right. I personally love it. It is Perrysburg's most improved park to me. It has improved so much since I moved here in 2007. Riverside Park is built into a steep hill. It's so steep that they used to caution the locals not to go snow sledding there. It's that steep. Connecting Lower Riverside Park and Upper Riverside Park are a set of stone stairs with handrails and a very long walking path. I like to call the walking path the ramp. The path or ramp is gradual, and I prefer the ramp to the steps, just my personal preference. My son Craig is young and 21, and he likes to do half and half. Half ramp and then walk up the steps for the second half. As you walk or climb up the hill, you'll see some artwork. We have some beautiful, colorful kites as our artwork at Riverside Park. It is breezy by the river, and kites like to fly in the breeze, so I think it kind of fits in with the park nicely. Once you get to the top of the hill, you're at Upper Riverside Park. It's a small park, but still, we do have an upper and a lower. You'll notice that at the Upper Riverside Park area, there are metal benches and footstools. The view of the river, the islands, and even the city of Maumee is very nice. In July, people like to set up their chairs or sit on the benches and watch the July 3rd fireworks from right there. City of Perrysburg does their fireworks on July 3rd instead of July 4th. If you're new to town, there you go. Now you have the info. Perrysburg and Maumee actually share the fireworks, the cost of the fireworks, and they do a fantastic job putting on a show every July 3rd. This spot, Upper Riverside Park, is also a popular spot for homecoming, prom, and graduation photos. It's a very nice spot to take a picture. What else is in the Upper Riverside Park area? We've got trash cans, flags, the Blue Star Memorial Byway marker and garden, the Gold Star Families Memorial Monument, and two cannons. If you only have time to see one thing at Riverside Park, you need to see Perrysburg's Gold Star Families Memorial Monument. It is very beautiful and very meaningful. That ends part two, which was the features of Riverside Park. Now on to part three, additional information about three of the features. With Memorial Day coming up on Monday, May 27th, this is a perfect time to talk about Riverside Park and these features. We'll talk about the Blue Star Memorial Byway Marker and Garden, the Gold Star Families Memorial Monument, and the story of the Riverside Park Cannons. First up is the Blue Star Memorial Byway Marker and Garden. The marker reads, "A tribute to the Armed Forces of America, Perrysburg Garden Club of Ohio, Inc., National Garden Clubs, Inc." There's not much on this marker, but I looked up an article about the marker in the Sentinel Tribune newspaper, which is published out of Bowling Green, Ohio, here in Wood County. And the article that I looked up was published on March 11th of 2022, just 2 years ago. I'll give you the highlights. The Blue Star became an icon during World War II. It was seen on flags and banners in homes, churches, and businesses for sons and daughters away at war. Real quick, this is Kim talking, not the article. Please note that the Blue Star is for living soldiers and the Gold Star is for the deceased. All right, back to the Blue Star story now. The program remains active today. In 1945, the National Council of State Garden Clubs adopted the program and began a Blue Star Highway system, which covers thousands of miles across the continental United States, Alaska, and Hawaii. With this marker, Perrysburg became part of the Blue Star Highway system. The benches adjacent to the Front Street Garden are for visitors and residents to sit and enjoy the view and take time to reflect. At this point, I'll end the story that I read in the newspaper and I'll say thank you to the Perrysburg Garden Club. I had no idea how much you did for Riverside Park until I read that article. Again, thank you. I'll have a link to that article in the show notes for episode 44 of the Perrysburg Podcast on perrysburgpodcast.com. Next up is the Gold Star Families Memorial Monument. This memorial monument is a tribute to Gold Star families and relatives. They sacrificed a loved one for our freedom. I'd like to tell you a little bit about this type of memorial monument. I learned about it from the Woody Williams Foundation website. And then I will read you what our local explanation markers say. Now, just a quick disclaimer, I'm sharing this information for educational purposes only. I am reading directly from a website. I'm not doing this for personal gain. The Perrysburg Podcast is an informational podcast, and I just wanted to mention that before we dive in. This is from woodywilliams.org. The goals of establishing Gold Star Families Memorial Monuments. The monuments provide a place of permanence for Gold Star families to gather and utilize as they see fit. These monuments belong to them and their fallen loved ones. They are intended to achieve the following goals. 1. Establish and provide a space the Gold Star families can call their own in honor of their loved ones and their family. 2. Demonstrate to Gold Star families that their community cares for them and appreciates their sacrifice while also honoring the ultimate sacrifice of their loved ones. 3. Establish and strengthen local Gold Star family communities through Gold Star family outreach events associated with each monument location. And finally, number 4, educate the general public about Gold Star families' enduring sacrifices and the ultimate sacrifice made by their loved ones. Gold Star families' memorial monuments are a two-sided tribute made of black granite. One side bears the words Gold Star Families Memorial Monument, a tribute to Gold Star families and relatives who sacrificed a loved one for our freedom. On the other side of the monument, there are scenes etched on each of the 4 panels: homeland, family, patriot, and sacrifice. At the center of this tribute is a silhouette of a saluting service member, which represents the legacy of the loved ones who have paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. Together, these features tell each community's unique story based upon the pillars of the foundation. You can read more about the pillars of the Woody Williams Foundation at woodywilliams.org. Again, that's Woody, W-O-O-D-Y, Woody, Williams.org. Now let's talk about the explanation markers. This is also from woodywilliams.org. Each Gold Star Families Memorial Monument features an explanation marker which serves to educate visitors about the monument's design, features, and meaning. With that said, I will now read the explanation markers from our Perrysburg Gold Star Families Memorial Monument. The text on the marker reads, Northwest Ohio Gold Star Families Memorial. The monument honors, recognizes, and serves Gold Star families and the legacy of their loved ones who have paid the ultimate sacrifice while serving in the armed services of the United States. The Homeland panel depicts images representing Ohio, which is home to many Gold Star families. It is our people, it is our family, and it is our freedom. The family panel represents the unwavering spirit of our military families who provide support to their loved ones who serve in the United States Armed Forces. The Patriot panel shows the raising of the American flag at Iwo Jima, which symbolizes those who vigorously support and defend our great nation through selfless service in our armed forces. The sacrifice panel represents the sacrifices made by our Gold Star families by the loss of their loved ones while in service to this country. Freedom is not free. The silhouette of the saluting service member represents the legacy of those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice while serving in the armed forces of the United States of America. This monument is a project of the Northwest Ohio Gold Star Families Memorial Monument Committee based in Perrysburg, Ohio, and the Woody Williams Foundation. That ends the text on the explanation marker. At this time, I'm going to talk about the podium on which the marker sits. On that podium, there is an engraving about Jerry Bachbrader, KIA, in memory of Jerry Bachbrader killed in action. The podium says, Jerry Bachbrader was drafted into the U.S. Army September 18, 1967. On February 26, 1968, he was deployed to Vietnam and assigned to Company C, 2nd Battalion, 5th Cavalry Division. His company was sent to Tua Tien Province, the northwest corner of South Vietnam. It was during a company's assault mission, May 20th, 1968, where Private First Class Bachbrader died in service of his country. Jerry Bachbrader was born January 15, 1948, and was a 1966 graduate of Perrysburg High School. That concludes the signage on the Gold Star Families Memorial Monument podium. There are other things to read there. There are other stones in the ground, but I am not going to read every single one to you. I want to take a moment to thank all of the people who spent their time, talent, and treasures bringing that memorial monument to Perrysburg. It is meaningful and it is beautiful. Thank you. Now, the third and final sign I'll read to you is the story of the Riverside Park cannons. These replica cannons from the USS Constitution came to Perrysburg through the efforts of village resident Charles Witzler. When Mr. Witzler saw an advertisement that these cannons were for sale, he realized their historical significance to our village. The USS Constitution, nicknamed Old Ironsides, was active in the War of 1812, in which Perrysburg had a noteworthy connection. There was the Battle of Fort Meigs, of course, but also the Battle of Lake Erie. The thought was that these ships' cannons would be credited to the memory of Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry, who drove the enemy from the lake and for whom our village is named. The journey that led these cannons to Perrysburg began in 1925, when a decision was made to extensively restore the USS Constitution. The 54 replicas cast in 1906 found new homes across the country, including 2 sent to Perrysburg. Through the generosity of patriotic village residents, to the tune of $425 back then, the cannons were brought to this place on May 23, 1934. They have stood vigil at Riverside Park ever since that time. In 2021, the cannons were refurbished and new carriages were constructed by employees of the city's Department of Public Service. These cannons were rededicated on October 16, 2021, and will continue their legacy at Perrysburg's foremost scenic vista. That ends the story of the Riverside Park cannons. I have passed those cannons many a time and never stopped to read the story. I appreciate this podcast because it has helped me slow down and learn more about my town. That ends part 3 of this episode. Now, let's review. In part 1, we talked about general information. Part 2 was features of the park, and part 3 was bonus information about the Blue Star Memorial Byway Marker and Garden, the Gold Star Families Memorial Monument, and the story of the Riverside Park cannons. As we kick off Memorial Day weekend here in Perrysburg, please take time to reflect on your own freedom and appreciate those who do serve and have served in the United States Armed Forces. Thank you for your service. If you hear this podcast episode in time, I want to invite you to join us for Perrysburg's Memorial Day Parade that will be on Monday, May 27th, 2024 at 10 a.m. The parade runs through historic downtown Perrysburg. A great place to watch is right in front of Welch Publishing. That's at the corner of Louisiana Avenue and 2nd Street in historic downtown Perrysburg. Thanks for listening to episode 44 of the Perrysburg Podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode on perrysburgpodcast.com. In the show notes, I'll have a link to that Sentinel Tribune article about the Blue Star Memorial Byway. I'll also have a link to the Woody Williams Foundation, the sign up for the weekly newsletter for this podcast, and more. Lots of great links today. Check those out on perrysburgpodcast.com. If you know someone who might like to learn about Riverside Park or hear the stories that are printed on our memorials there, please share this episode with them. And if you like this podcast, please subscribe to or follow the Perrysburg Podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Thanks for listening today. Have a great weekend.